look at an individual corridor, we'll look at that corridor and compare it to other roadways in that agency as well as other roadways statewide so that they can see where they might be above the norm in some of those different measures and metrics so they kind of know what to focus on and what to prioritize. After we provide that initial data analysis to everybody in those meetings, we will also then go through the process with them, which involves multiple stakeholder meetings that goes through and works to identify what kinds of problems are actually out there based on that data, what kinds of solutions they want to use to identify, and then how they go about in prioritizing and funding those solutions. So it's a pretty multifaceted process, again, similar to a road safety audit, but sort of in a more expanded capacity over a longer time period. A pretty common thing that we work with agencies now is providing some summary and comparison data to them. Just for your reference, if you want to see this larger and in fullness, there is a download you can do out of the handouts tab there for data that's called Data Template County X. And that's just a sample one that you can download to take a look at what we provide in more detail or in greater size. When we go through and we provide these, we now provide these every 2 years to cities and counties. And what we're doing is we're providing them a 10-year look at their crashes. On the left side of what you can see on the screen, all the text in red, those are fatal and serious injury crashes. The data on the right side that's in black are for total crashes. We provide both sets in case you're working with agencies that have small data sets to give them a little bit more expanded look. If they only have a couple fatal or serious crashes, they can see total data as well. We also give them a full 10-year window of data so that, again, if they don't have many crashes, they have a little bit longer time period to look at to build a little larger data set to work with. And what we do with them is we give them these 10 individual years of data to kind of show them trends and counts in different things. We provide them more of a summary level look of the most recent 5 years, and we prioritize these tables for each individual agency that gets the data. And so for any of them, in the ways that we break down the data, everything is prioritized for that agency by most fatal and serious crashes to least, and then by most total crashes to least. So the same way that we would analyze their data, we're giving it to them to analyze. We also, as we give them kind of that summary level look at their data, we also give them comparisons on the page here. You can see a comparison for this county to all county roads, but we also, I shortened it to make it a little easier to see. But in the download version, if you look at that, we also provide them with a look at their more geographic neighbors. Our state is divided pretty differently geography-wise from east to west, and so we'll give them comparison data to their side of the state. We'll give them comparison data to all similar roadways in the state, and then we'll also give them a comparison to all roadways in the state. That's especially helpful for some of the largest agencies that are dealing with pretty big data sets to compare to all roadways. So we give them comparisons so that they can look at what does their data look like, what are their priorities. We give them the comparison so they can see how does that data set compare to other agencies, similar agencies in the state. And we also go through as part of that data that we provide and analyze for them. And we'll look for, in our first look at their data, are there places that their data looks out of proportion, significantly different than what similar agencies look like. And we'll highlight that for them, so things you see highlighted in yellow there are where we've identified and said this looks more significant in your data set than for most agencies. Sometimes that's a pretty typical thing for them. Sometimes that's a surprise to them. So we try to provide them with that as a piece of this. And as part of what we're providing, we do those breakdowns in most any way that we can that might affect the engineering decisions, especially that they would make on the roadway. And so we break down their data by collision type, by the roadway surface conditions, by lighting conditions, by their junction relationship, intersections, or driveways. We break it down by roadway curvature. We break it down by the fixed objects that get hit. We break it down by functional class of road, by the contributing circumstances involved in the crashes, by the types of vehicles. That's especially useful if they have something that stands out for something like motorcycles or for heavy trucks or things like that. We break the data down for them by posted speed and also by surface type. That's especially useful for the counties if it's looking at gravel roads versus paved roads. And if it's a more urban agency, that has a number of pedestrian or bicycle crashes. We also give them a breakdown on where the pedestrian bicycle crashes occurred, what types of facilities, as well as what were the contributing circumstances from the actual pedestrians and bicyclists that related to the crashes. So we try to provide them this detailed look at data so that they can look through that and try to identify, as a first step in looking at safety for their agency, what are the things they should be focusing on and prioritizing. So we give this to all agencies that have any fatal or serious crashes in the last 5 years, just to give them all that same starting point, get them all pointed in the right direction. In addition to the big data table, that's a lot of numbers to look at if you don't love staring at data in large numbers like that, we also provide them with graphics. So there's a chart or a graph that goes with every element in that large table of data so they can get that information visually. It's broken down, again, by fatal or serious, the ones that are in more of a red background, versus total crashes, the ones with a black background. And this can help them, both if they don't dig details out of a table, help them to visually pull out what might be key and important out of their data. It also provides them easier to use graphics that they can share with their elected officials, or they can put into their reports or their safety plans. And truly the basis of providing this data and information to them is to give them a starting point to develop local road safety plans. And that's why we started providing it to them, and we've expanded that use over time. So we give them that data to go. We also provide maps with their crashes in case anything visually from the geography of their roadways, where they're clustered, might jump out to them as well. Some of the overall challenges we have run into in providing data support and tools to local agencies is that in working with a lot of different local agencies, there is a wide variety of technical capability agency by agency. Some of them struggle with data analysis. We give them that data set to work with, and they come back to us and say, I don't know where to go with this. And so some of them struggle with that. Some of them can look at that and know where they're trying to address things, but they struggle to know which kinds of countermeasures to use to address those. Some of them, just in general, are used to the more historic addressing spot locations, where they will go and make improvements spot by spot, and just don't have that mindset or background or history in how to do more of a systemic safety, widespread kind of approach to safety. And so some of them struggle with that. And then some of them struggle with that data availability, that some of them have a lot of useful information and some of them do not. And so all of those are things that we have run into as we've worked with different agencies. Some of our strategies to overcome that, a big one we rely on is training, that especially when agencies started coming back to us as we began to give them these larger data sets to work with, and said, we don't know what to do with this, we worked with Federal Highways to develop a safety analysis training for local agencies that basically said, once you have the data, how do you use that data to identify individual locations, and how do you use that data to identify what kinds of countermeasures to use. We've also provided training on roadside safety, pedestrian safety, systemic safety, just to give them the tools that they need and the background that they need to know how to go forward with that. We also significantly have invested in technical assistance. We provide a lot of one-on-one or small group training to agencies, conduct workshops around the state to help them build that technical competence to do this analysis, to build a local road safety plan, to do those kind of things. So we work with agencies and walk through their data with them. We walk through what kinds of countermeasures they might want to consider based on their crash types. We get them queued up and look at some of those early stages of network screening and walk them through the steps in the process so they will know how to put together a local road safety plan. So we've tried to provide a lot of that technical expertise as we've gone forward with that. And then for those that are missing data, we have encouraged them and we have supported through management in the Department of Transportation to fund safety projects that collect data. And so we have pushed agencies, especially as they develop local road safety plans, if they identify key things that are useful in that plan and they don't have data for those key elements, we have encouraged them and supported projects that go through to collect that missing data so that they can build a more robust and comprehensive safety plan, and that's worked really well for us. I think with that, that covers what I was going to walk through. with everyone.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And again, we are open for questions in the chat pod if you want to put those over on the left-hand side. We do have one more poll question for the audience, and that is, what safety data does the LTAP provide to locals in Washington? Crash data, summary and comparison data for cities and counties, detailed crash analysis for corridors or spot locations, network screening, all of the above, none of the above, I don't know, I don't remember. We'll give everyone just a few seconds. And at the same time, it does look like Matthew has put in the link as promised into our chat pod for anyone who would like that. I should also mention that in the handout, the data template for the counties that he was talking about is available down there. We did have to put it in PDF form in order to be able to upload it to Adobe Connect. When we post it to our website, we will post it as an Excel if possible, so that you have that as well. If we are unable to and you would like that as an Excel format rather than a PDF, just send us an email at info, at ruralsafetycenter.org, and I will make sure that we get a copy of that to you. At this time, it does look like everyone's filled out our poll, so I am going to broadcast those results for you, Matthew, if you'd like to address those.
Yeah, and looks like everyone got it correct, which is we provide all of those kinds of data to agencies. It has varied and grown over the years at what we provide and what's useful to agencies, so we've tried to fine-tune that and provide whatever is missing for different agencies, individual agencies as we go forward, and so that's kind of where we have ended up with a variety of data tools that we've made available to agencies. And I see a question over there in the chat pod about, is the crash data portal open to the public? It should be, and so I've posted that link there, so hopefully if you click on that, you can get in and run some samples of what that looks like. Again, we have a version 2.0 coming. This is the version 1.0 that's out there, but I believe anybody can access that.
Perfect. Thank you, and thank you for answering that question as well. At this time, it doesn't look like we have any additional questions, so I am going to wrap us up with the webinar. But again, you can always email us if you do have additional questions that you would like us to get answers from our presenters for. So in today's webinar, we hope that you have learned to identify low-cost safety solutions using a safety circuit rider program, to summarize Louisiana's regional approach to safety, to understand the systemic local road safety programs Connecticut has implemented and understand how a safety circuit rider can help support these types of efforts, and then to identify the variety of safety data made available to local agencies in Washington state. I do want to mention that, as I said earlier, this was the first of 2 July webinars that the Safety Center and the LTAPs will be co-hosting. And so our second one is Safe Systems for Rural Areas. That one will be held on July 31st. We do have some speakers from the University of North Carolina that will be talking to us about rural safe systems, and we will have a case study example provided by Clackamas County. Our August webinar, the date is still to be announced, but we will be talking about animal vehicle countermeasures at that webinar. And as always, all of our webinars are recorded and archived on our website on our training archives page. So please do check back there for all of our webinars that we've ever held. There's over 50 of them now over the last 4.5 years. And you are able to apply for CEUs and certificates of completion even for the archived ones as long as you do the survey that is posted with those archived streaming versions. If you do have any questions that you come up with, you can either contact us at the Safety Center and we'll get those answers for you, or now on your screen you should also see the email addresses for all of our presenters. I do want to thank all of them again. This has been an amazing presentation, and it's a great wrap-up from the Peer Exchange that they held last year. So thank you, Martha, Steve, Donna, and Matthew for taking the time to present today. We do really appreciate it, and thank you as well for co-hosting today's webinar with us. We hope that everyone has a great afternoon, and we'll hopefully see you in a couple weeks at our next webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. He's so good to his family.